Hey there, folks! Tonight, we're diving into the wild world of economics. Don't worry, I promise to make it as painless as possible. Let's start with the 2008 financial crisis, a real doozy that messed things up globally. Remember that? It all began with the housing market. Banks were giving out mortgages like candy on Halloween, even to people who couldn't afford them. These risky loans were bundled together and sold off as mortgage-backed securities. Sounds fancy, right? Well, these securities were supposed to be safe investments, but guess what? They were built on a foundation of shaky loans. When people started defaulting on their mortgages, the whole house of cards came crashing down. Banks went belly up, the stock market tanked, and governments had to step in with massive bailouts. It was a global financial meltdown. The world learned a hard lesson about the dangers of unchecked greed and risky financial practices. Now let's talk about something called purchasing power parity, or PPP for short. It's a way to compare the value of different currencies. Imagine a Big Mac costs $5 in the US and €4 in Europe. PPP says that the exchange rate should be $1 for 0.8 euros, so the burger costs the same in both places. Makes sense, right? But in reality, PPP doesn't always hold up. Why? Because other factors come into play, like transportation costs, taxes, and even the price of lettuce. So while PPP is a helpful tool, it's not a perfect predictor of exchange rates. Ever noticed how prices seem to go up over time? That's inflation, folks. It's like a sneaky thief stealing the value of your money. Inflation happens when the overall price level of goods and services increases, meaning your hard-earned cash doesn't buy as much as it used to. There are a few culprits behind inflation. Sometimes it's demand-pull inflation, where there's too much money chasing too few goods. Other times it's cost-push inflation, where production costs rise like when oil prices skyrocket. To track inflation, we use something called the Consumer Price Index, or CPI. It measures the average change in prices paid by urban consumers for a basket of goods and services. Think housing, food, transportation, all the essentials. Section 4. The interplay of crises, currencies, and costs. So, how do financial crises, PPP, and inflation all connect? Well, buckle up, Buttercup, because it's interconnected. Remember the 2008 crisis? It triggered a global recession, which can lead to deflation or falling prices, or in some cases spark inflation. When economies tank, currencies can weaken. This affects PPP because a weak currency makes imports more expensive, potentially driving up inflation. It's a vicious cycle that can impact everything from the cost of your morning coffee to your ability to afford a new car. Section 5. Conclusion: Economics in our everyday lives. Look, economics might seem like a snooze fest, but it affects all of us, whether we realize it or not. Understanding concepts like financial crises, PPP, and inflation can help us make sense of the world around us and make smarter financial decisions. So, the next time you hear about a stock market crash or see the price of gas going up, remember what we talked about. Knowledge is power, people. And hey, at least you didn't have to sit through a boring economics lecture to get it. You're welcome.